Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sunday Matinee. This is episode 17, the second episode of 2021. And because 2021 has only had 10 days so far, we're going to be talking a lot about 2020. So before we get started, I want to go around the board and introduce everybody. So welcome back, Sarah. If you don't know Sarah yet, you must be new to the show because Sarah, welcome back. Welcome to your first episode of the new year.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be in 2021, even though it's still been a shaky year so far.
Yeah. One weekend, and let's pray the next 12 months are better than this last week. And joining us again for the first time since Halloween is Frank Roberts. Hello, Frank.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. It's good to have you back. I actually had a question for you. I forgot to ask before we started recording. So I saw recently that The Village of Middlevale, that went to Amazon recently, didn't it? Streaming on Amazon?
Yeah, The Village of Middlevale, which is a feature film that I worked on with other Tacoma natives, that's up on Amazon Prime. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch that free with your account.
Cool.
So yeah, do that. Give that a watch because you know what? We haven't had, if you haven't seen it, yeah, definitely. We haven't had a lot of access to indie films recently because of a pandemic. So yeah, that is good to know. And we talked a little bit about Spacies the last time you were on. Now that moved to Thursdays, did it not?
Yeah, Spacies is now on Thursdays, and I actually wrote the episode for this week. I just got done with that this morning. So yeah, a couple more rounds of Spacies. We also have a Choose Your Own Adventure show coming up at the end of January. So I think the last Thursday in January, I think the 25th. Everybody's going to get mad at me for not knowing the right date. But you can tune in on Zoom and vote for what you want us to do in the episode. And we're going to write like a whole like Bandersnatch type episode with different choices and stuff. So it'll be pretty fun.
So yeah, check that stuff out. It's great to see that. It's just so great to see that people are still producing new work right now, even if we can only watch it online. So I guess it's time to jump into the news here. So we kind of took a pass on the news last week and jumped right into Wonder Woman. So there's some things that are a little bit old, but mostly new stuff here going on. One bit of news that dropped just a few nights ago. Marvel Studios is already in development on season 2 of Loki. And that is, we're still 4 months from season 1 even dropping on Disney Plus. So I guess that's a spoiler alert that this Loki is not going to die. Or maybe he will and come back because he does that often as well. Or maybe it's going to be yet another Loki. Who knows? If you watch the trailer for that show, it already looks incredibly weird. But hey, of all the shows they've got going, that's probably the one that I would want to see more seasons of rather than trying to put Loki back into the movies because I think he's kind of finished up his arc with Thor and with the Avengers, and it'll be nice to just have him doing his own thing for a while. But speaking of Loki, the writer and showrunner of this first season of Loki, Michael Waldron, has been tapped to write the Star Wars film produced by Kevin Feige of Marvel Studios. Now, this Star Wars film was not talked about at the Disney Investor Day last month, or was that November? Anyway, time is irrelevant anymore at these days. Anyway, that was announced at some point last year, and no one's really talked about it since. But they must like this guy because he obviously got through a season of Loki, and apparently he wrote the script for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So Disney must love him, and that's great. On to what I think is my favorite bit of news this week, even though it doesn't confirm anything. John Rhys Davies recently talked about Indiana Jones 5, and any Indiana Jones fans out there know that he played Sulla in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which are easily the two best films in the series, and he definitely helps make them as good as they are. So it's not confirmation that he's coming back, but that would be an absolute treat to have him come back, because like I just said, he was so good in the ones he was in. Sarah, did you ever watch Indiana Jones?
Yes, that is one of that's my dad's like second favorite movie franchise after James Bond. So yes, I grew up watching those movies multiple times. I enjoyed the fourth one. It definitely was a little but I did enjoy parts of it. I would be down for a fifth if it's somebody other than Shia LaBeouf in it.
I know nothing. I don't think anyone knows anything about the story. The only details that we really know so far is that it's going to be the last film, apparently. And it's going to be directed by James Mangold, who directed Logan and Walk the Line and 3:10 to Yuma. So, no Steven Spielberg this time around, but, James Mangold has proven himself in the action and drama department, these last, 10, 15 years. So I trust that he's going to know what to do with this last film. And hopefully will not include a scene in which Indy hides in a refrigerator to not get blown up by a nuclear bomb. So, Frank, would you like to see John Rhys Davies come back for Indiana Jones?
Oh yeah, always, absolutely. Yeah, the two best Indy movies have him in it, and they're made, I think, all that much better because of him and his relationship with Indy. And yeah, he's always fun to see. As skeptical as I always am that like a movie years and years and years down the road is going to be like a really satisfying sequel to the series, I still am always happy to see these old people returning into the films. And so I'd be very happy to see him in it. I hope he does. I think he was just talking about if he gets asked, he would say yes. I think that's pretty much all I saw. But I certainly hope he's asked.
Yeah, they should definitely ask him.
Absolutely. And, for you youngins out there who may not have seen the older Indiana Jones films, John Rhys Davies is, of course, also famous for playing Gimli in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Significantly shorter in those films than he is in real life. So watch the old Indiana Jones films. You can skip Crystal Skull. It's overall, it's pretty disappointing. And I absolutely agree, Sarah. I don't want Shia LaBeouf to come back. They can gloss over that. Maybe
I don't know who made that casting choice out of all the young men in the world. Like there could have been somebody better.
Well, we could always just, as we tend to do with anything he's involved with, put the blame on George Lucas. But I don't know either. But we'll just pretend it's George Lucas. Moving on. This is a continuing story that I talked about way back, I think, in episode 12 with Zach. So, last year, Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg in Justice League, brought up misconduct allegations against Joss Whedon, who did the reshoots for Justice League, as well as DC executives Jeff Johns, John Berg, and DC Films president Walter Hamada. So what has happened since is Ray Fisher has supposedly said that he will not work on any film at DC that is under the direct supervision of Walter Hamada. And then rumors started circulating that he quit the Flash movie, which he was supposed to be in. Ray Fisher tweeted last week that he did not quit, and that the allegations that he brought forth earlier are the reason for the split between Warner Brothers and Joss Whedon. Joss Whedon had to leave the show he was working on for HBO, and that he suspected that Jeff Johns would be the next to leave. Well, Jeff Johns has not left yet, and we're going to keep following that story because that's obviously there needs to be a shakeup at Warner Brothers to resolve these issues. It reminds me of the issues that were happening over at Marvel when Ike Perlmutter was still in charge, when he would say things like, no one's going to buy Black Widow action figures because it's a woman. No one wants to see a Captain Marvel movie or a Black Panther movie because racism and misogynism. So, and once he got the boot from Marvel Studios and ended up just running their television department, that's when we finally got to see Black Panther show up in Civil War and get his own movie, and we got Captain Marvel. And that's when, mostly when Phase 3 really started to be Marvel's consistently best little selection of films. I attribute a lot of that to him getting kicked off the movie. So we're going to see what goes on here, because that is a big deal. Moving on from that, This is just a fun little, I think, we talk all about streaming services all the time. Roku has bought Quibi's content library. Now, Quibi was that streaming service that launched early last year, and it was all about short form content, this kind of stuff that you're going to watch on the bus on the way to work. But as it turns out, we didn't need short form content last year because we weren't riding buses and we were all home in front of our televisions, and we needed long form content to keep us busy while we were not traveling anywhere. So Quibi very quickly just sort of fell apart, but Roku owns their entire library now, which is insane to me. I'm assuming that no one here ever got into Quibi.
I had never heard of it until you mentioned it in this Matinee episode. But I did actually I think I saw an ad for it. Were they the one that had like the movies shot on iPhone that were like different depending on if you held it this way or this way?
Yeah. And that's actually the one thing about them that I thought was cool, because obviously if you're watching Netflix or Hulu or pretty much every streaming service on your phone, you have to tilt your phone. You can't just watch it. And I don't know what screen mode they call when you just hold your phone regularly, but yeah, you can't just watch stuff like that. So that's cool that they did that. And maybe Netflix with their original content will start picking up on trends like that. But yeah, rest in peace, Quibi. Good to see that your content lives on. But I don't have a Roku, so I guess I still won't be watching it. Just two more bits of news here. One, I think this is really cool, even though I've never watched any of the Rocky or Creed movies. Michael B. Jordan is apparently set to direct Creed 3. I just think that's really cool because he is an awesome actor. He's worked a lot with Ryan Coogler, so he most assuredly knows what he's doing. And the first Creed, I don't remember how beloved the second Creed film was, but I know the first one was pretty well received by critics and audiences. So I probably should at least watch the good Rocky films before I die, because a lot of people seem to have seen them. So
I watched the first one a long time ago. It's definitely that pulling yourself up, and I don't know. But it was good.
Frank, did you ever get into Rocky?
No, I was relieved to hear that you'd never seen any of them either, because I've never seen any of them. I'm massively playing catch up on like every franchise, every movie. I'm just trying to absorb culture. So no, I look forward to watching it one day, but I've yet to dip my toe into that pool.
Same. So our last bit of news here, and I just don't care if this movie goes forward or not. But if it does, Richard Donner he says he's game to direct Lethal Weapon 5. And it's been, speaking of movies that haven't had a sequel in ages, 1998 was the last time we saw Lethal Weapon. And it actually it actually seemed to bring an end to the story pretty well, with Riggs becoming a dad and Murtaugh becoming a grandfather, and the most outrageous premise in which Mel Gibson and Danny Glover managed to beat Jet Li. I can't, I don't see how that's actually possible because he is amazing. But yeah, we talk a little bit about Lethal Weapon on the show in the Christmas episode because the first one is, looked at in the same vein as Die Hard as a holiday film. But honestly, I would be more excited at this point to hear that Bruce Willis is coming back to do another Die Hard, even though that series has also gotten steadily worse over the years. But I don't know. I find older Bruce Willis to be a more believable action hero at this point than old Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
Yeah, Mel Gibson's gotten kind of creepy too. So
that too.
I've never seen any of the Lethal Weapon movies, so I missed those and Die Hard. I actually watched Die Hard for the first time last year.
You definitely Die Hard is between the two. It's Die Hard. You go with Die Hard for sure. The first Lethal Weapon is pretty good.
Over Mel Gibson. Like in a movie, I would pick his movie over Mel Gibson's movie.
Frank, did you ever watch Lethal Weapon at all?
Nope. I've seen no Lethal Weapon movies either. I've seen a few of the Die Hards, but I've seen no Lethal Weapons. I've heard great things about them, and people have recommended them to me for years, but I just have yet to got a long list, and that's one thing that yet to really do.
Well, maybe we have to do an entire episode that's just listing stuff for Frank to watch.
Hey, that would be a long episode, but it would be great.
Classic movies we've all never seen. No.
Yeah.
I would have a lot too.
All right, so time to move on to the actual sort of topic of this week. Like I said, we're in 2021 now, and the sad truth is it just feels like 2020 has bled over into this year already. As it turns out, when the calendar year changes, it doesn't reset everything. Womp womp. But we're going to talk about the best and worst of 2020 in film and television. So I asked everyone to pick 5 bests and 5 worsts. I'm not worrying about overlap in this episode because I am completely certain that it is going to happen. There's no way to avoid, especially on the side of the worsts. So I'm going to start us off here with my first worst of 2020. And I simply wrote down delays. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, theaters shut down, movie studios made the correct decision to delay films. Unfortunately, early on, they didn't predict very well how far they would need to delay their films, and we all kind of thought this would only last a few weeks as well. So, we were all kind of on the same page, but, Mulan, No Time to Die, Black Widow, they were all pushed back, a month, 2 months, 3 months, and then we would get into June, July, and realize we are not going to be going to movies for the summer. And so they all got pushed back into late fall and for December to launch around Christmas. The one exception, of course, being Tenet, which, kept getting the 1 or 2 month delay every single time until it was finally the first to break under the pressure and release to what few theaters it could. And it's so obvious that no one, by the standards of film success, no one saw Tenet. I was lucky to catch it at a drive-in, but for most of the summer, we were seeing we were going to drive-ins to see re-releases because studios figured they could make an extra buck on movies that had already made a profit. So, and that worked out for them pretty well. But we are now looking at most of 2020 slate having been delayed into this year. And right now, we still have our fingers crossed, but pretty certain that stuff that's supposed to release in the late spring, early summer, as late April and May, like No Time to Die and Black Widow, is probably either going to get delayed again or it's going to drop onto streaming services. So yay. Yeah. It's been what we've talked about all year on this show. There's always something coming up. So that is my first worst. I'm going to go clockwise from my screen. Sarah, what is your first worst?
Well, that was kind of my first worst too. But another along those lines item that I have was just like theaters closing and a kind of uncertain future for cinemas. I think is kind of the future concern kind of the pandemic, like that, it just seems, I know some theaters have closed and it seems there's definitely a lot of people talking and then with Warner Brothers move of like having all their movies released on HBO Max the same day as they do in the theater. There's been and Disney releasing movies like straight to Disney Plus. There's kind of been a lot of talk of, maybe that's going to be the future, that they're just going to be releasing movies to streaming and, theaters won't, I would assume there will still be some theaters that will stay open and show movies. Cause I don't think they're all gonna go away, but because I think enough people like to go, but I feel like it might turn into a thing where, you find them in the city or in kind of the big populated area and people who don't live by a big city aren't going to have access to theaters. Now, along those lines, my hope is that maybe you'll see less of the big chain theaters, and maybe more of the kind of small independently owned one, because I always kind of like those better. They have, I don't know, they have kind of more interesting food items in the snack bar, and I don't know, they usually just are kind of homier, and they're usually not quite as expensive either, especially but yeah, I just the idea that we're moving away from movies getting released in the theater makes me sad, because I really enjoy seeing movies in the theater. I think that's, along with going to restaurants, that's one of the number one entertainment things we've really missed this year, because having a toddler, it's really hard to watch movies at home. And it was way easier to go. I mean, we saw way more movies when we could have somebody watch her and go see a movie in the theater, but trying to find a time to watch movies at home, it's you only have these little kind of windows when she's napping. So I really, really hope that theaters don't go away and that some of them stick around.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of the major chains ends up going under and just going away completely. My hope is that if it does, that they don't demolish the buildings, and maybe someone will come in and revive them at some point. I'm less concerned about some of the indie theaters because they can more easily reach out to, the local population and say, hey, we're doing fundraising, or hey, we're doing curbside popcorn like the Grand has been doing. Or doing what the virtual showroom like they've been doing. So stuff that the big theaters just can't do because they're too big. But I do want some of those big theaters, maybe not the chains, but those big theaters themselves to stick around, because I love the Grand, but I don't want to go see Black Widow there. The Grand is great. The Grand was, the last movie I saw there was Jojo Rabbit, and that's the perfect place to see that movie. It would have been the perfect place to see Parasite. It's a great venue for intimate films. But I want to see my big action movies on a slightly bigger screen with slightly better acoustics. But yeah, it's worrisome. And I get really upset by the people who say this is the way it should have always been. Because pretty much a lot of people on the show have said we missed this. And you know, Sarah, you and Dustin have Adira, but it's like Frank and I don't have the responsibility of having to watch kids. So we have that much more free time to say, hey, friends, let's go see a movie together. And like, so our families are our friends. And that's what we do. And, and we're all stage actors as well. So we're all anxiously awaiting stage theaters to open as well. So, once cinemas shut down, did they come for the stage next? I hope not.
People will find a stage.
That's true.
Thankfully, that's been around since whatever BC.
That's true.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a need for that kind of audience together in a room experience, whether it's on a screen or whether it's actors. I think that desire will always be there. Maybe maybe it will change. Maybe it will be something that's harder to access. There won't be theaters everywhere, but which I've even experienced in my lifetime. There was a couple theaters in my town when I was a kid that were kind of smaller theaters, but I like them because I spent a lot of time there as a kid, and they've destroyed both of them when they built a big megaplex in the neighboring town. So I guess that's the part of me that one would love to see some of those smaller ones come back, but
yeah, we'll see. That's a big what if. So Frank, what is your first worst?
My first worst is to not change the topic at all. Cinema closures. It's the exact same thing. I'm a little bit more hopeful about it post-pandemic. I think that there's still going to be a market for places for you to go see Transformers 70 million with your friends. I think that a lot of cinemas have been sort of gearing movie watching toward the idea of an experience, as you get the larger theaters or the super loud theaters, whatever they call them, that just seem to be super loud and give me a headache. But still, I think we'll still see both chains and smaller theaters once all this is over. I understand everybody moving away from it, and I understand the necessity to not pack a bunch of people into a space together, and I appreciate people being responsible about it as far as a company goes. But it's still, I do love going to the theater, and it was a real bummer to only be able to do that until early March this last year. And so that was probably my biggest worst of the year.
And I just want to point out too that another argument people have been making is when these theaters come back, that maybe we're only going to see big event films like Marvel and all the big action films in theaters, because there's no reason to see smaller films on a big screen. And my counterpoint is small films can be just as majestic, and just as they can have just that same epic feeling on the big screen. Look at, again, I bring this up all the time, but look at Parasite. The cinematography in Parasite is worth observing, at least on a screen as big as you can get at the Grand. And it has, I won't spoil anything, but it has those moments that if you're sitting there with an audience, is whoa, just like an Avengers movie. The only difference is no hammers being held by men with shields. So I'm going to move on to my first best. And I wish we were seeing more of these, but in the early parts of the pandemic, and it kind of ended, I think, in the early summer, 3 different NBC shows had a sort of COVID reunion specials. The first one was Parks and Rec, and it was just an absolutely delightful reunion to get that gang back together. And it was basically them saying, for the love of God, stay inside and don't, go out and socialize. but it was nice. And then we got, I can't remember which one came next. I think it was the cast of Community did a read of one of their season 5 episodes, but they couldn't get back Walton Goggins to play his role. He was the guest character in that episode, but they brought in Pedro Pascal to read the part, and he was just wonderful. This was already after season 1 of The Mandalorian had ended, so most people knew who he was, and it was just delightful for them to get to a part with a very inappropriate joke and just seeing him not able to get the lines out at all. It took him about 5 minutes to get through this bit. And for those of you out there, it's the episode after, it's the episode where they're reading Pierce Hawthorne's memorial, and when they get to the end, the distribution of the gifts. And I'm not going to say what they are because it is, again, it's kind of gross, but that's exactly why Pedro could not get through the dialogue. And then the last one was the 30 Rock reunion, which unfortunately I think most of us could only watch on Peacock, and it kind of was just a big 1 hour ad for Peacock, but it was still really cool to see Alec Baldwin and Tina Fey playing those iconic characters. And I wish I'd love to see more reunion shows. Just really pushing that nostalgia factor. I'm sure that I wasn't a big fan of this show, but I'm sure everyone would freak out if there was a Scrubs reunion special on ABC. Like all those shows that were kind of at their peak a decade ago in 2010 and the years leading, probably 2008 to 2013. Those shows, I think would really, of course, I don't know. Yeah. So Sarah, you said you would love a Scrubs reunion. Frank, what kind of reunion would you like to see if you could have the reunion of your choice?
Oh gosh, that's hard. I really love The Office still, so an Office reunion I think might be fun. I also am a fan of Scrubs as well, and so I think a Scrubs reunion would be pretty great. Yeah, I only saw the Parks and Rec one, which I actually really liked, and I also liked that it was also a fundraiser for charity. I think for Feeding America or something like that. That was really cool. So I was glad to see it come together for a good purpose in these times as well. But yeah, either of those shows. I guess maybe Friends. I don't know. When you talk about sitcoms,
I think they did a Friends reunion on HBO or something.
Oh yeah, did they? Okay.
Either they did or it's happening. One of the two.
Yeah.
Well, if they did it, I didn't watch it, and
I don't know if it's
fake fan. Whatever.
I don't know if they've shown it yet, but I did see something advertised about it.
Oh, they did just do the Fresh Prince reunion.
Oh.
And that's on HBO. I don't think it's like a narrative driven reunion like the 30 Rock and Parks and Rec ones were, but that'd still be cool to see Will Smith. Because that is, of course, a beloved show from the 90s. Sarah, what is your bet? What is your first best of 2020?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to think of best things. So I put as my number one best The Mandalorian season 2. So we just finished it last night. So I had it fresh on my mind, but I know season 1 wasn't in 2020, but that whole the whole story and the whole arc and the whole I don't know, it was the best Star Wars movie that was a series on streaming. So it was very fun and enjoyable, and actually it kind of reminded me a lot of Firefly. I felt a very Firefly vibe about it for some reason. But and I would add to that just kind of Disney Plus in general has been a source of joy and entertainment during this. That's kind of it's I think that's the weird thing about thinking best and worst this year is well, I'm sad about the theaters and I don't want them to go away, and I don't want it all to become streaming. Streaming has also been really great too. I mean, it would be good to have both. But my daughter is just kind of getting to an age where she watches like a little bit of screen time here and there. And it's been really fun to watch some of the really old like Disney cartoons that I watched on the Disney Channel as a kid with her. So, and then just knowing all the really fun new Marvel and Star Wars series that are going to be coming over the next year or two. As much as when they announced Disney Plus, everyone's like, oh, another streaming service, they're going to take all this stuff from Netflix. Like it's been a pretty enjoyable streaming service in my opinion. So.
I haven't used Disney Plus nearly as much in between seasons of The Mandalorian, but it's good to have access to that treasure trove of films, some of which I only have in a garage in a box on VHS tapes, which I can't watch anymore. So if I ever, get that itch to watch one of those old animated classics, thank goodness they're there. Frank, what is your first best?
My first best is drive-in theaters coming back in a bit of a bigger way. I love drive-in movies so much, and it was a real treat to be able to watch drive-in movies. We watched Indiana Jones, the first one, Raiders, and Jurassic Park in a drive-in, and it was a great time. And we wanted to go to others. Other people were hosting like Star Wars New Hope and Princess Bride, and we wanted to make it to both of those, but we couldn't. And we tried to make it to Coco, and they showed it in Lakewood, but it got like winded out, and so they weren't able to like have their screen up or anything, and that was a bit of a bummer. But overall, we just really enjoyed the drive-in experience. I really loved it, and I kind of hope that one actually stays around post-pandemic. I would love to see more drive-in theaters.
Yeah, I was able to make it out to Shelton to catch Tenet, and I've already talked a lot about how my personal experience with that was bad, not because of the movie, but because drive-in theaters are way different now than when I was a kid, which is the last time. Because I used to have one just down the road, and I haven't been since they closed down like a little over a decade ago. But it's crazy to me. I thought that they would close down the drive-in theaters for the fall and winter seasons, and they've stayed open. At least some of them have. The Skyline down in Shelton playing Wonder Woman, and thought that'd be cool to see it on the big screen. Unfortunately, that weekend that it had opened was also this last weekend where we had like the torrential downpour every day. I was like, that would not be fun to go see a movie. Someone I'm following on Twitter, actually, I think they went and saw Coco in the middle of a snowfall at a drive-in. It's like, that'd be cool. But again, you'd have to, wipe your window every few minutes. But I have a feeling that if we, aren't getting our walk-in movie theaters back this year, we're going to be seeing a lot of big releases come to the drive-in. I don't know if I've said this on the show, but I'm predicting that Black Widow is going to release, in May as scheduled, but it'll probably drop in theaters where it can and drive-ins here, and probably drop on Disney Plus as well. Because now that Marvel is starting to release their television shows on Disney Plus, those shows are supposed to tie back into the movies, and we're gonna wonder when are we going to get the movies that we're supposed to be tying into. So I think Black Widow is a very early candidate for drive-in here at Washington State, assuming that it does hit that release date. So yeah, we all have some great nostalgia from going to the drive-in back when they were really a thing. So I agree. I hope they become a thing. I remember I saw Jurassic Park at the drive-in when it was new. That was just so cool. So yeah, I hope we get to see a lot of new films and some appropriate re-releases at the drive-in, especially this summer when it's great to go back. We've all shared a one best and one worst. So, okay, my second worst, and this one's going to hit hard. 2020 felt a lot like the second 2016. We lost a lot of beloved stars in 2020. Early on, we lost Honor Blackman, who of course played Pussy Galore in Goldfinger. Then we lost Sean Connery towards the end of the year. So we lost two major icons from James Bond. But the hardest hitting one, I'm just going to focus on that one. The hardest hitting one was definitely Chadwick Boseman. That we didn't see it coming. He's so young, and his career was going nowhere but up. And Black Panther 2 was one of the most anticipated Marvel movies, and now it's kind of up in the air as to what's going to happen. And he's just such a wonderful human being. So to see his life come to an end so early on was just absolutely devastating. With everyone else, it was, not to sound bad, but everyone else just about everyone else who passed away this year got to live that nice full life. Connery was almost, if not in his 90s. So
He was in his 90s.
So he made it. He made it. And he got to have a solid 17-year retirement. So, but yeah, it was just 2016 all over again. And with given that we're also just dealing with so many people dying every day, it just makes it even harder that there are people out there dying that we can all recognize. It's just 2020 was just absolutely a devastating year.
I think it was also especially devastating with Chadwick Boseman because he was such a positive, awesome Black icon, having played Black Panther. Didn't he play with Jackie Robinson in a movie too or something?
And James Brown.
Yeah. And just that happening right after, the George Floyd stuff. And it was just, and all the, the Black Lives Matter things that, stuff that's been going on. And I think that was another just hard hitting, losing that big icon right as all this stuff is coming to a head. This was also my number 2 thing. So, I felt very depressed about that. I had also just, I just read, what is the book called by Ibram X. Kendi? I'm blanking. How to Be Anti-Racist. And he talks in that about his own battle with, I think it was colon cancer. That's what Chadwick Boseman died of, and it really adversely hits Black people. They have way higher numbers of that particular form of cancer for some reason, and nobody's really done research on that, why that is. And so, having just read that book, I'd read about his struggle with that and his fear that he was going to die from it. It was very hard hitting. Not a happy day at all. That was a bad day. A bad day in a year of lots of bad days.
Well, that we both kind of covered that very well. Frank, what is your next worst?
One of my big worsts was that there was just a lack of films this year when trying to select things that normally in a year what was the best and worst thing, I'd be it's just a straight up list of movies. But for me this year, it's the simple fact that nothing really came out, nothing really happened, and it just kind of seems to reflect the overall mood of the year. I was just kind of felt like one big wash, really, just sort of a year-long pause button on a lot of stuff. So yeah, that was kind of my big worst, is that I just love seeing people do new things, and that didn't really get to occur. Sort of up and down the board. So it was a shame.
Yeah, we had not even 3 months of new movies this year, and the stuff that either was produced for streaming services or acquired by streaming services, I never got hooked by any of those movies. I know there was a decent number of films that ended up going straight to streaming, but the only ones that I was ever really for sure ready to watch were like Onward and Soul for Disney, and Wonder Woman. Like, what was it? Tom Hanks had the Greyhound film where he was the submarine captain, and I just, for one, it went to Apple, and I don't have Apple. But even then, it was like, you're not hooking me with this. I think Chris Hemsworth had a movie drop on Netflix, and it's like, it looked fun. I think the Russo brothers produced it, and it's like, it couldn't hook me with it. I have a difficult time finding seeking out new content specifically on streaming services. I love using streaming services to watch stuff I know. Parks and Rec and Community got a couple different, watch throughs this year. But yeah, I did, yeah. Unless it is something big, and I know what I'm going to love, like a Pixar movie. So yeah, I definitely concur there. Like, there was a lot of not enough. Okay. So my next best is, one of the very few films that was released in theaters this year. The Invisible Man was an absolutely stellar reintroduction of that character, and just a great little horror film, a nice little low budget film with a great performance from Elizabeth Moss, and a very relevant story about gaslighting, and frankly quite terrifying. I haven't watched it since, but given that it's one of maybe 4 films that I saw in a theater this year, it's easily one of the best, and gives me hope that that horror films from major studios can go in a good direction, and that we don't just have to depend on the indie scene to get new, fresh takes on the same story, because it's been a while since we've had like a great horror film from Universal. The Wolfman was fine. I think the last one I really loved was the first Mummy in 1999 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. So here's hoping that they can actually get a good a good little set of horror films going. I hear they're looking at doing a Dracula next from the same director. So let's get it done. Let's get some horror films in there. That's one of my best films of the year. Sarah, what is your next best?
My next on here is I guess it's kind of along the lines of my last best one a little bit, but this one is like Netflix series in general. So I totally agree with what you're saying about the movies. I have not had a lot of desire to watch a lot of the movies that have been streaming. I did watch Onward on Disney Plus, but I still haven't gotten to Soul or Wonder Woman. Partially for the reasons I said earlier. It's really hard to watch feature-length movies while your child's napping. So we've definitely taken to watching a lot more series, because it's a lot easier to get like a 45 to hour minute episode in than like a full-length movie. So yeah, I watched a lot of enjoyable series on Netflix this year. And I feel like they've really, I think HBO kind of started it with like really upping the quality of like series, but I feel like Netflix really added to that, because not only because HBO kind of everything is like super adult pretty much on there, but Netflix kind of does that quality stuff for like all different ranges of viewers. The new Haunting series they released this year, The Haunting of Bly Manor, was really kind of sad, but really, really great. What was the other one? I think we were watching a season of Stranger Things earlier. It's kind of hard to remember what we watched this year, but The Crown has been really amazing. I haven't gotten to watch The Queen's Gambit yet, but I've heard like really amazing things about that. That's like on my list. And I'm blanking on what the other one was, but yeah. Just it's been nice that they've been able to keep releasing a lot of new stuff this year. So even though we haven't seen a lot of new movies, I feel like we've gotten a lot of new series, which is kind of perfect for everybody while they're stuck at home. So
Yeah, for those exact reasons that you've been talking about too, I think that's why everyone sort of flocked to The Mandalorian, is you can watch an episode and then take a break instead of having to sit down for, 90 minutes to 2 hours. I didn't get into too many of the new things, but I think it speaks volumes that the original series on Netflix found a lot more success than the films did this year. Everyone was talking about Queen's Gambit. Everyone's talking about Bridgerton right now. And everyone keeps talking about, every time a new season comes out, everyone talks about The Crown. So yeah, it's the movies kind of come and go, and I think they get forgotten. But those Netflix original series, I hope that they start making them last, because they have also gotten into a very bad habit of canceling a lot of their season shows after like 1 or 2 seasons.
They really are emulating HBO.
And I think Stranger Things is like the only one like we know is going to go to like season 5 or 6. The rest is like, oh man, please don't cancel this. Frank, what's your next best?
I'm kind of cheating here because there were no movies technically released in 2020 that I loved, but one that I found, according to one source, had a 2020 release date for the US was Deerskin by Quentin Dupieux. He also directed Rubber, which is a movie about a telepathic serial killing tire. And Deerskin is a really fun movie about this unhinged dude who spends his last several $1,000s on a deerskin jacket and gets a video camera and kind of goes a little unhinged a little bit. And it's a really solid movie. It was quite a delight that I actually got to watch through the Grand's virtual screening room, which you talked about. And I really, really loved it. Every other movie that I saw was, except for like Blow the Man Down, which was also fantastic, was way old. But that was a really nice newer one that I saw this year.
I'm writing both of those down right now.
They're pretty wild. I like Deerskin way more. Rubber's a little too meta for me. It has like a full-on meta subplot about it. But I really love Deerskin a lot.
I think I tried to watch Rubber once and just couldn't get into it. But
yeah, it actively tries to not let you watch it, which is like kind of the point of the film. It's a weird.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good that you got to see. We'll call them new-ish movies, even if they're not 2020 films.
Yeah, it was
that
in
weren't
like May of 2019, but whatever.
Yeah. We like we talked about earlier. A lot of people spent their summer going to see Jurassic Park.
True.
A lot of people saw Jurassic Park in 2020. Some people may have seen it for the first time in 2020, which is crazy.
So that'd be a fun movie. I haven't watched that in a long time. It'd be a fun movie to revisit. I wish there were more drive-thrus around us.
Yeah, because I think the closest one for you, Sarah, is the rodeo, right? And that's really far up north.
I honestly don't know where there's the only drive-in I even know of is that one you talked about in in Shelton. Like, I don't know of any other drive-throughs anywhere near us or north of us. So the one in Bellingham closed. I believe the one in Oak Harbor closed a long time ago. The one in Bellingham closed a long time ago. I think Canlis set up in Seattle set up a drive up movie thing, but it was like a really small. I mean, it like literally sold out like the day they released the tickets because it was like a tiny little area, I think. But yeah, I would having had some drive-in options would have been really awesome. So hopefully they get on that for this summer, because we probably aren't going to be back in theaters by this summer with the rate vaccines are currently coming out.
Yeah.
Maybe they will get faster.
Well, maybe this summer too. Maybe a local Walmart will step up their game and turn, or not. I don't know. Was it abandoned Walmarts or closed down Walmarts that were converted for a little while, or was it just actual active Walmart stores? I just heard that
they do have huge
like
parking lots, so it would make sense.
So maybe you'll get lucky and there'll be a makeshift one set up somewhere near you. Because like Shelton is about an hour away from me, so
yeah,
like have you drive down to me and then drive down to Shelton. Yeah. That's like a 4-hour round trip for you, and that's probably not worth it to see a movie.
No.
So that was best. So we're on to the third worst. Okay. So Sarah, this is actually, I love Disney Plus, but 2020 was the year of too many streaming services, and that is my third worst. We talked about this so much too. We've had ones that have failed, like Quibi, and every film studio and whatever, their partners, their owners are trying to get their own streaming services. NBC Universal has Peacock. So we lost The Office. We lost Parks and Rec. If you want to watch that, you have to go to Peacock now. Once it's CBS All Access is becoming like Paramount Plus this year. So basically all the Paramount stuff is going to go there. You've got Disney. Who else is out there? Like Sony, I think, has Crackle. Even though they don't like put everything on Crackle. Crackle's a little bit more where they throw a lot of their low budget junk films. But like, it's just getting to be too many. And Warner Brothers has HBO. So all the Warner Brothers stuff is going there. MGM doesn't have one yet, but MGM is also looking to offload their entire film library to anyone who will buy it. So it could end up on any one of these streaming services. Pretty soon, if someone wants to buy it, they could become the permanent owner of James Bond, which is that's a little scary to me to think that, oh man, the entirety of James Bond is locked onto one streaming service. Thank God I have them all. But yeah, like I've continued to buy physical this year whenever I can, just because I've said it before. I don't like owning a billion streaming services. It was really nice 10 years ago when it was just Netflix and Hulu. And you could just watch everything on there. So, but it's difficult to not have Disney Plus. Right now, it's very difficult to not have HBO. If you can afford it. What was I going to say? It's frustrating to me that, the studios are all doing this, because if there was a physical media equivalent of that, it would be you have to buy a Universal branded Blu-ray player to play Universal films and a Sony branded Blu-ray player to play Sony films. Like, you don't have to do that. You just have to buy a Blu-ray player and you can play all your Blu-rays. Doesn't matter who released them, except for region locking. But, most Americans don't worry about region locking because they just buy their movies at their local Best Buy. So yeah, like it's frustrating that, and it's all going to add up and, become more expensive than cable at some point, if they just keep growing them like this. So yeah, there's some great streaming services out there, but please stop. Sarah, what is your next worst?
My next one kind of ties into that, which my next one was the push to release movies to streaming services was my next worst. As much as I love certain things about streaming services, the idea of releasing theatrical movies to them, like, I mean, I get why they're doing it right now, and in the pandemic, I mean, there's some movies. I think releasing movies like Soul and Onward and Mulan. I mean, that makes sense, to give families some new content to watch. But I feel like it's going. But then hearing like HBO's thing with Warner Brothers, it's a little too like, I don't know. I feel like streaming services really are great for series. Like, I love streaming services for series because clearly you're not going to like go see 12 episodes of something in the theater each week. But so that's like a nice option to have at home on streaming. But I really feel like movies are meant to be released in the theater, and at least, a lot of the movies, maybe some don't need to be, but I would say, I think there is something to seeing like great cinematography on a big screen, and, people that have, I feel like a lot of these movies were made to be seen on a big screen, and then to just kind of be like, well, maybe we'll just start releasing them to streaming services. I feel like streaming is for shows and theater is for movies. Like, I don't know. I mean, not that I don't watch any movies on streaming, and I think it's great to watch them like after the fact on streaming, but yeah. And then, like, along with what you're saying, if there's going to be like 20 million streaming services and they're releasing movies to like the streaming services, it's like, okay, well, I can't see that one because it goes to the streaming service I don't subscribe to. And yeah, I am also not going to subscribe to 30 streaming services. I think we currently have like 4 or 5, and that's really all we want.
Well, I think the trick's going to be to just find groups of 30 friends and just share each other's passwords so that we all can watch everything. Oh man, I'm going to have some stuff to say about some of this in one of my later worsts. So, I do want to say though, and I don't know, Frank, you might be able to speak to this as well, but when I was watching Wonder Woman, this speaks to watching movies at home versus the theater. I could tell what scenes were shot in IMAX, and that was frustrating.
I don't think I could tell that. The fact that it didn't come out until way later than it was normally scheduled to come out, and the fact that I was watching it on my TV at home, both added up to feeling like I just skipped seeing it in theaters and I just watched it at home on my TV, and it was like, yeah, maybe this was fun in theaters, but I mean, it still was fun. But it's like, this is definitely one that I should have watched on a big screen, and I still kind of feel that way. I wouldn't be too surprised if they were just like, well, re-release it in theaters when we can. And I might actually go. Who knows? It definitely seems like it's like way more fun to just see on a big screen.
Well, I only say that because, like, literally, it was the prologue scene with the big contest of champions. It filled up the entire screen. There were no black bars. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, that's an IMAX scene right there.
Nice.
And someone wants me to watch that on the biggest screen in the entire world, and I can't.
Yeah, and that would have had like such a big impact on such a large screen. I mean, like, it was still great to watch, but I think it absolutely is like big action temples like that are an experience.
Yeah. Let's see. Frank, I think you're up next with a worst, right?
With the worst, okay. For me, it's like the industry shut down and like the loss of jobs for like creators. I really feel for them, especially being someone in theater right now. just being like, okay, I've gotten no money from my government that I pay, and I also can't go to work, and it's just been really terrible. I can't imagine how all of them are feeling. I know that like stuff for filming has opened up a little bit because you can actually be way safer on like a film set than you can for theater, but it's still I just sort of, I guess, feel for people in the film industry and hope that they're able to get work and work safely as well, and everything can kind of kick back on up for them, because I know a lot of people just have their lives on hold a little bit like us.
Yeah, film is definitely possible, but like they all have to live in the bubble.
Yeah.
Like, which is not an easy way to live. I mean, none of the ways to live right now are easy, but I remember reading on Twitter, someone who works in television said, this only works because they get us tested every 2 days. It's like, yeah, that's makes total sense. If you're on film, you have to be around people all the time. There's no way around it. I know that like Disney pioneered some really good green screen techniques to get The Mandalorian season 2 out in a timely manner, but still, like, you still have a lot of stuff where you have to have that cast in the same room. So, and it is so much worse for us in theater, because we don't get green screen. We don't have all that cool technology that allows us to work together far apart, except for Zoom.
Test everybody every 2 days.
Yeah. We get to do Zoom shows, and it's been fun to do Zoom shows every now and again, but it is not the same. Not even close.
No, nowhere near.
All right. Now that we're done commiserating about our lives and hobbies, I'll talk about one of the best things from 2020. We've kind of talked a little bit about this, but I'm kind of lumping them both into one category. Pixar went 2 for 2 last year with Onward and with Soul, proving once again what we already knew, that they are one of the best animation studios in the world and can deliver a story that makes you laugh and makes you cry and makes you smile and laugh. If you have Disney Plus, thankfully both Onward and Soul were released without having to pay a premium price to access them, which is really nice. I just bought Onward on Blu-ray because I can, and because Best Buy had a steelbook and I'm a sucker. But they're both absolutely solid films. If you have been worried that Pixar is ever going to go downhill or get stuck making sequels, I got something to say. This was a good year for them. So, they kind of had to like improvise and change up the way that they work to get Soul out in the time that they did. So good for them. Keep up the good work. I look forward to, I can't remember what Pixar has in the works next, but I look forward to it. And I hope that I get to see it on a big screen, because Pixar films are also they're delightful films to watch on the big screen, because there's always Easter eggs to find and just all kinds of colorful, wonderful environments that look incredible on a theater screen. So keep up the good work, Pixar. We look forward to what you have next. Sarah, what is your next best?
My next best was starting this podcast. Or the start of this podcast, I should say. So it's something we've kind of talked about a little bit off and on for a long time. And so, trying to find the silver linings of living through the pandemic, it did give us all time to get this started. And it's been really, really fun to have these shows to look forward to, since I don't really get to go much of anywhere, having high risk people in my household. And finally getting to do the Christopher Nolan episode and just nerd out about Christopher Nolan for almost 3 hours was pretty awesome. So, and it gave me a good excuse to rewatch some of his movies.
Well, thank you. I had actually thought about starting this up as one of my best, but I thought, oh, that's kind of cheating.
Too self-congratulatory.
I don't need to pat myself on the back. But I do want to reiterate, thank you to Sarah, Frank, and everyone else who has joined me, and I hope to get some more people on here as the year goes on, and we're probably still stuck in homes. And it'll be interesting if this is something that continues after the pandemic, and if it's ever at all possible to do a show like this with 3 to 4 people sitting in the same room, all talking at the same camera. Never know. It may be possible, but for now, it's the one thing I'm thankful for with Zoom, because even post pandemic, it would be so much easier to just do this over Zoom or Discord or whatever. So thank you, Sarah, for that. Frank, what is your next best?
My next best is one that we've already actually touched on, and that was accessibility for like indie films, and that was the Grand's virtual screening room was really great, and it was basically just like a link to like small end distributors pages for films that you could just watch in your home. And again, like Sarah was saying, for like family movies, like smaller indie movies, they totally still work on your small screen as well, just in your home. And I really enjoyed that, and I don't think I used it as much as I definitely should have, but it was a great way to both support local theaters that needed the support and also support the filmmakers, while at the same time still getting to watch interesting content that you can't get anywhere else. And so honestly, it was one of the best this year, being able to see something in some genre of film that was new. Was wonderful.
Absolutely agree. Like we said before, indie films are just as important as the big ones, and you're not gonna catch those on Netflix and HBO. So God bless the Grand for what they do.
I will actually say, Deerskin is on HBO. I
saw
that the other day, and I was like, oh my god! So there it is.
Okay. So my next worst kind of deviates from film and television, but we're still in entertainment mode. And it kind of does. They're technically both Blu-ray players, but the launch this year of the Xbox series of consoles and PlayStation 5 was the absolute biggest clusterfuck of the year, with just like when the PlayStation just sort of Sony said, we're going to put pre-orders up tomorrow, and then Walmart's just let their pre-orders go up like 10 minutes later, with the only notice being a tweet. Set off an absolute crazy chain reaction of every other retailer saying, hey, let's get this going now so we can get in on the game. And no one knew it was happening. And then Xbox pre-orders went up a week later. There was crazy advance notice. But crazy advance notice also means that scalpers can get their crazy advance bots ready to get everything. So it was also an absolute disaster. And launch day didn't fare any better because, because everyone's saying, get these on the internet, don't come into the stores, because we don't want massive crowds in the stores trampling each other, because the holidays are already bad enough. We don't actually need Black Friday crowds this year. So, and the fact that if you lived in England, Amazon drivers there were switching out PlayStations and replacing them with boxes of kitty litter and other household supplies, in order to just sort of steal them. So yeah, it was an absolute disaster. So if you were looking for your brand new top tier 4K player that also happens to play video games, I guess that's what they're supposed to do. Um, but they also, you can also stream on them. That's how I watch Netflix, is on my Xbox. So and it's still hard to get them. And yeah, like that's just, they need to figure out how to beat scalpers and how to make these, like, this was like the one of the few things in the world that like millions of people were like, oh my God, something good is happening this year. And it ended up being an absolute disaster. Um, for just about everyone, except for the handful of us that managed to get one or both. So yeah, let's fix that down the road. Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Sarah, what is your next worst?
This is the last thing I have on my list because two of mine kind of got mushed together. But the last thing on my list is social media. I feel like while there are definitely some good things and uses for social media, it's not all 100% negative. But I feel like this year, with everybody kind of being stuck home because of the pandemic and all the stuff that was going on, I feel like social media became a really, really ugly place because so many people have more time on their hands. And I think what's sad is that it could have been a nice way for people to connect when they couldn't be together, but instead, in our current environment, I don't know, I just feel like it kind of became a place where everybody became a troll and everybody started picking at everything. And I don't know. I found myself like drawn to it because I miss people, but then I've had to take several breaks from it because it's like giving anxiety. So, I feel like I don't know what needs to change about it. Something needs to change about it, but it's been kind of an often ugly place this year.
One answer to that is it needs to be better moderated by its actual facilitators. And that happened this week with a certain someone who got banned from several social media platforms. And I'm really thrilled about that. I also think that's one of the reasons that social media has been kind of a toxic place this year, is because, our so-called leader, who should be setting an example, has set a terrible example for how to behave, both on social media and just in general. And film Twitter is a terrible place. And film social media in general. The number of YouTube videos that I didn't watch, but just saw the titles of, just like, I do not want to watch this review of Wonder Woman because the title it's just like, oh, it's an unmitigated disaster. Like, what were they thinking? And it's like, yeah, it's absolutely fine to not like something. It's not cool to hop on social media and just completely try to break down the director or even threaten them or threaten the actors. There's a reason that a lot of celebrities have left Twitter, and it's because it has been a toxic place. Daisy Ridley and Kelly Marie Tran from Star Wars, I followed them on Twitter, and then after The Last Jedi came out and that film got some of the absolute most toxic backlash of any recent film, they were gone. That's a shame.
Yeah, that was pretty disgusting. Like all the social media stuff around the Star Wars movies. I mean, it's fine if you don't like them. It's fine if you hated them. But it's also fine if you loved them. Can we all have our own opinion and not need to bash everybody and prove that they're a terrible person because they didn't agree with you? Especially when it comes to movies. I don't know.
Yeah. We're in an era where film should be one of the things that it's okay to disagree on. but for some reason it hasn't been. So I don't know. I hope better moderation is something we can look forward to in the coming years.
It just
We
makes me
shall see.
sad because it would be fun to go discuss movies like when you can't be with people, but you can't like go discuss movies online because you will get like, you know, like threatened and tormented by people. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Frank, what is your next worst?
My next and I guess last worst, because I couldn't think of that many, were again on the smaller scale, were film festivals being shut down or going. Thankfully, some people were able to do certain things, like have drive-in festivals or even have virtual festivals. But still, there's like a massive, massive benefit to new filmmakers or filmmakers trying to break into the industry. Um, Having a room where a bunch of people can sit and watch your movie and then connect that movie with you, the person who's trying to like basically use it to advertise yourself or to make bigger connections or to meet new people in the area or in the genre if you apply to like a genre festival. So, I mean, while I'm still personally really happy that there still were film festivals and still was like a platform for newer filmmakers to be able to put stuff out there in the world, it's still a big bummer that they weren't able to be held in person. And again, it's responsible of them to not hold them in person, but still, it's just a shame circumstantially.
Absolutely. And the same can be said coming soon for the award shows. Not only will they be, if they happen, not only will they be small events, they will literally be short events because of just how little content there was to, maybe the television awards will feel a little bit more normal because we did get a lot of new television and streaming stuff this year. But yeah, not a lot to say about movies this year at the Oscars.
I think we watched the Emmys or some award show, and that was actually a pretty good show. Well, despite all the apartness, it was pretty good. Let's say. But yeah,
I look
Oscars.
I look forward to. Even though I've never been to one, I look forward to festivals coming back because, of course, that also means like conventions get to come back, and like just gatherings of diehard fans is definitely important. All right, what is one of the? Oh, this is one of my favorite things that happened last year. Is we were all stuck at home and we didn't get a lot of new content. Last year, however, was a really good year for catalog 4K and Blu-ray releases. Starting very early on, we got the entire Star Wars Skywalker saga on 4K. That was nice. Just last month, the Lord of the Rings trilogy made its 4K debut. Jaws came to 4K last year. Oh, what else? It was a great year for horror fans with Scream Factory releasing catalog horror films to Blu-ray. I got a lot of new Hammer films last year, so that was awesome. Mad Max Fury Road came to 4K last year, and that movie is awesome. So if you were looking to upgrade your library either from Blu-ray to 4K or from DVD to 4K, it was a pretty good year to do that. Yeah, I mean, just getting all the Star Wars movies alone was crazy. And this is, in an era where all we keep hearing is that physical media is on the decline. I'm thankful that we got those big releases and again, Scream Factory is a studio that is a publisher that exists to give us those films that we would not normally get. Thank goodness for those independent publishers because yeah, there's still quite a few films that are either locked on VHS or DVD that deserve that high definition upgrade. Um, it's all about that film preservation. And also because going back to streaming services, all you get with a streaming service, even if you buy your movie digitally on Prime, is a license to watch it. And that license can be revoked at any time for any reason. So, yeah, thank goodness that there's still a market for physical media out there. Sarah, what is your next best?
My next best is kind of more of a tangential thing to movies. The book industry, or I should say like independent bookseller specifically, has been a really positive thing this year. I know quickly as the pandemic hit, you know, a lot of like Powell's or in Portland and a lot of other, you know, were immediately, you know, kind of afraid of like losing their stores because they already kind of struggle to stay afloat and struggle to keep their employees like employed. And that has been one positive thing I have seen on social media this year, because I'm a pretty big follower of a lot of bookstores and bookstagrammers, because I'm a pretty big book person. There was a real push for people in the book community to buy as much as they could from independent bookstores. And which, you know, I tried to buy a lot of books, knowing we were going into the pandemic, from one of my favorite local ones. And so far, all the ones I follow have been able to stay in business with their online business. And they were even able to hire back some of their people because they were getting so many online orders. And then that tied directly into as the Black Lives Matter movement was really starting to rev up again. I've definitely just kind of Bookstagram in general becoming aware of really pushing a lot of Black authors of color, Black-owned bookstores. It led me to follow a lot and learn about a lot of Black-owned bookstores that were on Instagram, and just kind of seeing how their business has increased. And there was like a point where a lot of the books that were really being advertised as being great books for white people to learn about white privilege and to learn about being anti-racist were like sold out everywhere. Like it was really hard to get copies of them because so many people were buying them. So that was a positive, I think, this year. And just a big kind of flood of love toward like the book community, and a lot of exciting book releases, which, you know, gives a lot of future material for future movies and TV series. Since that seems to be where a lot of the movies and TV series come from, is the book world right now. So that was definitely a positive this year, was seeing just all the love and attention and coming together for the independent bookstores and making sure they stayed afloat during the pandemic.
Tangential that may be, but really, like all these forms of art are interconnected in some way. You know, you're going to have a stage play that becomes a movie that becomes a stage play, a book that becomes a movie, a movie that gets the adaptation to a book, usually for kids. I remember reading like the 70-page children's adaptation of Jurassic Park, the movie. It's like, I was thinking like, oh, this is not the actual book. This is the book of the film. Okay.
Yeah, the actual book was pretty dark, even compared to the film.
Yeah. And that has been actually a very uplifting story throughout the years, just how a lot of people came together to save bookstores. And again, that's amazing, because books are another form of physical media that people have, you know, always said, oh, it's going away because of Amazon and the ability to read on tablets. And thank goodness books haven't gone away. I'm personally much more comfortable reading an actual book than hopping into bed with a backlit tablet trying to, again, well, let's just use it again, Jurassic Park. I would never want to read that on a tablet. It's a page turner, damn it. Frank, what is, do you have another best for us?
Yeah, I have one more best that I could come up with, and that was the ability to catch up on a lot of films. For me, since new stuff wasn't coming out, I was like, well, I've kind of just got some time to watch all those movies that everybody else has always seen and that I never have. So I watched Shawshank Redemption for the first time this year. I wrote others. Silence of the Lambs was another like big one that I'd never seen before, and there were a few others that had been on my list for a while, like Farewell, Shape of Water, Marriage Story. So there were quite a few films that I was really happy to have access to and the time to watch them, and kind of the ability to play catch up. Honestly, is what most of the year turned into when I was watching movies.
Yeah, I think that's actually, I think I'm getting an idea out of that, and I may post it on the Facebook page to see if people just want to make lists of movies and then just sort of create that sort of list for me of films I need to catch up on. And then we can all just sort of trade lists because, yeah, you're right. We all do. We all have films we need to catch up on. I have not, I've not seen everything. I've seen a lot, but I've not even close.
I definitely have a lot of movies to catch up on, particularly from the last couple of years. But I have a lot to catch up on from the entirety of the movie history too.
I know what one of them is because I let you borrow it several years ago.
Yes, I still have it, and I need to watch it.
All right. So we're on to our last round of worsts and bests, and we may not everyone may have a full five because, like I said, we have a lot of overlap here, and mine does kind of overlap. And that is my worst is something we talked about already is just the whole HBO Max deal with movies launching on streaming the same day as they land in cinema. I've said it before on this show. The subscriptions to HBO Max are not meant to subsidize an entire year's worth of big budget studio films. They're there to subsidize maintaining that service and covering the costs of the original content produced for that service. There is absolutely no way in heck that those subscription services are going to keep covering more DC Comics films, more big budget Godzilla films, Dune. I have no idea what the budget for that is, but it has to be astronomical. Like, movies are just more expensive. HBO's television content is certainly more expensive than what you get on the networks, but like even a full season of His Dark Materials, I can't imagine has a budget the equivalent of Dune or any of these big films. So yeah, to expect everyone to just get free Warner Brothers, to get Warner Brothers films on top of everything else they get without having to pay for them in the movie theater. It's a great experiment for the year. It's good that they're doing it while we're all locked at home, but it's absolutely impractical that it's to be expected going forward without raising the cost of that subscription.
I'm really hoping that that's something they're going to drop. I mean, I guess they kind of announced they were doing it, but I'm kind of hoping it's something they're going to drop after this year. Yeah. I mean, a lot of I'll probably, once we get HBO Max, I'll probably try to watch Wonder Woman, but I definitely would have rather seen that in the theater. I definitely want to see Dune in the theater, and I'm actually pretty happy that got delayed until like the fall, because we might be able to get back in theaters by then. So hopefully, but I know they were kind of upset about it too. Like, a lot of those filmmakers are really upset about that deal.
Well, yeah, Legendary Pictures, who made Dune and Godzilla versus Kong, had no idea that Warner Brothers was going to do this, and so they've been fighting it for a while. And I read somewhere that they're maybe coming to a resolution with Godzilla, but Dune is still kind of up there. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Like they should at least give it like a few months or something, like not put it on HBO Max for a few months after its theatrical release. You know what I mean? Like I can see having the theatrical release and then maybe you put it on HBO Max like right when it releases on DVD or something, but I don't know.
It's also, and this is another accessibility issue, it also is kind of lame that they're doing these HBO releases like the same in sort of the same kind of schedule that you would have a theatrical release. Wonder Woman's only available until January 24th. And then, the next film on their schedule will drop like either a week later and then sometime in February, and you can only stream it for a month. So it's not like these films are on there permanently. Like you get a few weeks and then it's gone. And I assume that they'll come back to HBO, like you said, Sarah, once they are available on home video to buy. But like, that sucks that, like if you're not informed, like you might get HBO Max on January 25th thinking, yes, I can finally watch Wonder Woman, and it's gone.
But I didn't know that. So thank you for telling me.
I hadn't heard of that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's all on a schedule. So that's just another reason why this whole HBO Max deal is one of my worst things.
Yes, I know. And I'm going to be doing this upcoming 4-day weekend. 4-day weekend for me.
All right, Sarah, do you have one last worst for us?
No, I kind of ran out. I think I could add another worst was just like not being able to go to movies with friends, not being able to see people in general, not being able to be around other humans was sad, and not being able to go to the Cinnabar was really sad.
Yep. Concur. Frank, have we talked about the Cinnabar at all? Have you ever been?
I don't know. Maybe.
Do you know what it is?
No. So probably not.
Oh, Frank, it is wonderful. It is a wonderful, glorious place where you go see a movie, you sit down, and then you pick up a menu and you write down what you would like to eat and drink. And then they bring it to you during the movie. And you can keep doing it until about 45 minutes before the movie's over?
Yeah.
And they do have a bar. And like one of the last movies that I went to the Cinnabar with Sarah and Dustin was Thor. And I definitely got hammered at Thor, which was an appropriate way to put it.
I went to the Cinnabar like after I took the GRE for grad school, because the GRE place is like right nearby the Cinnabar. So I went to go, I think it was like Mockingjay Part 1 or something. I think I had 2 drinks before I even went into the movie. And then because the GRE is so stressful. I was definitely like sobbing through the whole movie. Yeah, it was good. Good times.
Sounds like a great place to be. I'd love to go there.
Oh yeah, I've seen. What did I see? I think Krampus. We saw Krampus there. That's a good movie to eat and drink to. Alien. What was it? Alien Covenant, which was probably not a good movie to be eating at.
I think we went there. Didn't we go there to see something else?
We went to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
That's right, but it was sold out. Susan saw that. Yeah,
Guardians. No, it wasn't. It wasn't sold out. Remember, it was.
Oh, it was just there was no.
The front row was the only place.
There was only the front row like open.
It's one of those.
I was definitely in the mood for Guardians of the Galaxy and not Alien Covenant.
And yeah, it's one of those theaters where like the front row is like 5 feet from the screen, and it's like, nope.
Not the best time to like eat and drink while you're that close to the screen. You're going to get motion sick on stomach.
Yeah.
So that is the glorious Cinnabar. Please survive. Please survive.
Yeah, I haven't seen any signs like they're closing, so hopefully. They're owned by Regal, and Regal is not one that's closed down, right? So.
Well, I mean, in Washington, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not what Regal hasn't like closed. Like like
No,
we're out of business. Yeah.
I don't think any of the major chains have yet. I mean, I know AMC like shut down, but I don't know if they're out of business.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I feel like it was pretty popular. I think it'll
Yeah.
come back once they can open again, but or something like it will come back.
Mhm.
I'm gonna freaking open my own if they don't come back.
All right. So Frank, do you have anything else for the worst, or are you tapped out?
I'm tapped out. I mean, I could echo everything that the both of you have said that I failed to, but we already belabored those points, and the year was terrible enough without dwelling on it too much. So, yeah, no.
I know.
All
They all
right.
kind of tie back to one thing.
Yeah.
Well, my last best, and I talked this film up last week during Wonder Woman, is my favorite film of 2020 was Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn, a film that practically no one saw because people are assholes who don't want to go see female-led comic book movies directed by women of color. And I know a bunch of people were bummed out that it was kind of a follow-up to Suicide Squad, which is not a very good film. But Birds of Prey does a very good job at sort of playing like you never had to see that film. You can definitely go to Birds of Prey without the bad taste of Jared Leto's Joker in your mouth. It is definitely DC's answer to Deadpool. It's got that same fourth wall breaking mentality and that same raunchy humor. Ewan McGregor is an incredible villain, and yeah, it's just a rollicking, ridiculous good time, and one of those very rare treats that we get in the comic book movie world right now, the wonderful R-rated film. So absolutely do not show it to your mothers. But yeah, everyone, support the amazing Birds of Prey. It is after the first Wonder Woman, I think it is probably my favorite DC film of recent memory. Sarah, what have you got left?
My last thing, I think, is just sort of, it was sort of a yin and yang with the social media, was that people, like, one thing, good thing that did bring social media this year was more awareness and attention around just kind of seeking out artists of color, books written by people of color, and movie theaters unfortunately have been kind of closed this year and things are made way in advance, but my hope going forward is that kind of new awareness will lead us to a lot more movies and that type of art from more people of color. So that's my hope from this year, is that kind of growing awareness goes forward and we start to see, because we're seeing more books, we're seeing more like this year. So I'm hoping we start seeing more movies too, particularly more big theatrical movies.
I concur. Nothing else to add to that. Frank, you have anything left to say for us?
I didn't have a fifth good thing either, but I will say I'll definitely check out Birds of Prey. You're the one that's been talking about it all the time.
I know, it's on my list too.
It's definitely up there for me.
Well, the good news is it's a Warner Brothers film, so you can watch it on HBO Max.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, is it on HBO Max already?
Yep. At least
cool.
I think it is. I'm pretty sure that all the DC movies prior are on there. So that leads us to sort of the last big question, and I think we've kind of answered a lot of it already. Is what are you looking forward to in 2021? Frank, I'm going to go to you first.
Oh, wow. Vaccines. I want I'm looking forward to better distribution of vaccines and us getting back to kind of the world we all miss. And by, sort of suffering through the awkward transition and all of that, but I'm looking forward to a time where we can start to have these communal spaces to celebrate the things that we love again. That's really what I'm looking forward to.
I will second that. That is also what I am most looking forward to. Looking forward to the needle in the arm, very much so.
Yeah.
And just hopefully by sometime, I think it's going to be mid later this year, but by sometime starting to be able to go out and be around people again. And very much looking forward to that.
I'll third that one because everything else that we've talked about wanting to do comes after that. It's been one of the best things I've seen on social media, the past 2 weeks or so, are the handful of friends who have said or posted pictures of, getting that first shot. And it's like, oh, yes, someone I know out there is, slightly better protected against this. And once we can all be, I know there's a lot of people out there who are refusing to get the shot, but for those of us who do, oh man, that's one step closer. So yeah, on the actual movie front, I honestly am, and it's starting on Friday with the release of WandaVision. I am looking forward to Marvel coming back because last year we got nothing.
Yeah, that should have been on my worst list. No Marvel.
For the first year since 2009. And we should have had a lot more. But, there's a lot of shouldas. I'm going to skip over the section on closing thoughts because I think that's a very good bunch of closing thoughts right there. And we're just going to go right into trivia. So, last week I asked Catherine and Andrea what the top grossing film of 2020 was, domestic release, I should say. And of course, it was Bad Boys for Life, which only grossed something about 240, maybe 250 million, which, is low by Marvel standards. But hey, you know what? 250 ain't bad. So I was going to ask you two what the lowest grossing domestic release was, but I had a really hard time narrowing down how do I categorize this because there's going to be a lot of films that no one's heard of on the list of, the box office list. And also, like, how do you categorize wide release this year? It's tough. There are too many films out there that should have been wide release that kind of just got shafted. We'll just say that. Tenet, one of them. There was a sequel to The Croods released in theaters last year, and I didn't know it until after it was gone. What the heck? What a weird year. So instead, my question for you this week is, what was the highest grossing domestic re-release of 2020? Was it A, The Empire Strikes Back, B, Jurassic Park, C, Hocus Pocus, or D, The Nightmare Before Christmas?
That's so hard. Oh my god. I just want it to be Jurassic Park, so I'll say that one. But I love all those movies, so it's really tough.
That's a tough one. I feel like I also want to say Jurassic Park, but I don't.
I'm going to take that as a Jurassic Park from both of you. All right. So last week, no one got onto the board. This week, also no one got onto the board. Because the correct answer is everyone decided to flock to the drive-in October to see Hocus Pocus.
That's crazy.
That's funny.
I wouldn't have guessed that either, honestly.
Wow.
I would have guessed any other
I
of the
was-
three.
I was going between Jurassic Park and Nightmare Before Christmas, but I was thinking, why would people be going to the drive-in at like Halloween, Christmas time?
Yeah, I just had a drive-in totally not happen because of the weather in October. That's insane that it worked out for somebody else.
But I guess I guess if you're in the South, it's probably easy to go to the drive-in.
That is fair. That's very fair.
So yeah, it really just depends on where you're at.
It's
know,
just
for
that
us,
we
it's-
have cruddy weather from like September to March.
Yep. So yeah. So congratulations to nobody. Nobody is on the board 2 episodes in.
Nice.
Sarah, your championship crown is already
Already
being
moldering.
threatened. Yeah. So yay, that was our second episode of 2021, our 17th altogether, which is crazy to me. I know it's not a significant number by any stretch of the imagination, but it's cool that it just keeps going. So thank you, Sarah and Frank. Thank you, everyone out there who is listening. Remember, you can find us at facebook.com/truthinfilm, at Twitter at Sunday_matinee. I've got the blog, which is truthinfilm.wordpress.com, where you can read my review of Wonder Woman. And hey, you're watching us on YouTube right now. I know it's the only way you can watch this, unless you downloaded this or hacked it or whatever and are distributing it illegally somewhere else. In which case, I will not find you and catch you because I'm not that smart. So thank you, everyone. Oh, and please submit trivia questions to fisheyelensseesall@gmail.com. It is very exhausting for me to come up with new trivia questions every week. So, if 5 people submitted a question a week, hey, that's 5 weeks of trivia for me. And I want to stump this panel real good. So not too tough, though. Someone's got to win at the end of the year. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll catch you sometime, hopefully next week. Who knows? Until then, have a good evening.